All right, so I've been speaking with leftists, socialists, and Marxist types for a little while now, and it's been a very strange trip filled with tortured definitions and incoherent and inconsistent claims. Now, I have been doing a good amount of this over the past week, and most of it stemmed from when socialists and leftists were praising the burning down of small businesses, claiming they deserved it because, they're petty bourgeoisie and their employees are merely exploited wage slaves. And I got some strange responses from several people. Now, okay, I'll bring up the fact that the business owners put everything on the line, right? They risk their life savings. They risk everything they've accumulated to start the business, and not only could they easily not make any money off of it, but they could lose it all too. The investment could evaporate, and they're left far worse off than if they had just chosen to go the route of being a worker or a laborer somewhere. They might have been better off. That's called risk. Now, the worker that comes along long after the business is up and running, they did not need to take on any risk like that. They didn't have to concern themselves with that risk. They didn't need to concern themselves with putting everything up or the possibility of losing everything that they've just put up. So there's a huge distinction to be made there. And every time I either get no response or I get abjectly insane responses like this one. Yes, this person actually said that businesses are not risky. As long as you have employees and two functional brain cells, you can exploit them for profit. So it's just that easy, I guess. But that is unbelievable to me. And by no means is this the only person on the left that thinks that this is true or thinks this way. I've heard many different variations of this too many times to count. These people quite literally have no idea what they're talking about when they sum things up in this way. So business isn't risky because you're just exploiting people. So no need for a vision. All those business owners spending time creating their vision, trying to figure out a way to execute it. All that time spent reaching out and forging connections with other organizations, other businesses, other people. All that time spent getting snapshots of where they're at financially. What resources do they have available? Should I lease the office, rent it, buy it? What makes the most sense? What's the most cost-effective tools I need to get the job done but not break the bank? What insurance should I get that makes the most sense for this business? What am I selling? How do I advertise this? Where should I advertise it? Who's going to be receptive to this advertisement? I hope someone's receptive to it because I've put a lot of money into this, and if they're not receptive, this could all go up in smoke. So none of that matters to the socialists, or rather, they desperately want to make it seem like it doesn't matter. So they can come in years after the fact and then scream about exploitation even though they had a grand total of nothing to do with the risk that it took to get that business to where it is. A business that could have landed that business owner in a deep dark hole of debt if they hadn't made the right moves. But no, none of that matters. Leftists just claim that business isn't risky because you just need to exploit people. Absolutely ridiculous. And this is odd because I was in another conversation talking about businesses paying a living wage, and if they're not able to pay a living wage, they have no right to exist. Now, I said, not for nothing, it's not that many businesses won't pay a living wage, it's that they can't. Their profit margins aren't big enough to take on that extra cost. And it's weird because on one hand, you'll hear from leftists who say that businesses aren't risky, you just need to exploit people, it's simple. But then on the other hand, they're saying, hey, sorry things are difficult for you, I understand that, and I understand you haven't been successful enough to pay us what we want, but because of that, you have no right to exist. So on one hand, they say business is easy, and it's not risky, it's easy to exploit people for profit, and that's all you need to do. But then on the other hand, they recognize that it is difficult, and if it's been too difficult for you, to the extent that you literally can't pay your employees more, then you shouldn't be allowed to exist. Totally incoherent. Both of these things cannot be true at the same time. And by the way, what a great favor you'd be doing for the workers of that business. And if we're talking about minimum wage workers, you'd be talking mainly about high school students or people who haven't had much, if any, experience. Now, whatever wage they were making, it just went to zero after you burn the business down. You just took the option that they did have and you literally burnt it to ash. Now they have to go find another job, and where will they find one? Well, if these socialists get their way in this regard, they can find one at the only game in town, which will be gigantic businesses and corporations that survive and thrive now that their smaller competitors with smaller profit margins are dead and gone. So that's another thing. They hate big businesses and corporations. Okay, I have some sympathy there. We need to stop putting up with the collusion that occurs with government and big business. I'm with anyone who says that. But if the leftists hate them so much, then they need to realize that what they're doing is one of the biggest gifts to big business that they could have ever hoped to receive. And I just don't think that they realize that. Also, a weird thing with this is, what do we hear pretty consistently from leftists? It's that they don't like the dog-eat-dog mentality you find within capitalism or competitive markets. You know, cooperation, not competition. Those kind of slogans. Okay, well, finding businesses that don't have the margins to take on an extra cost of paying a living wage, and at best, being indifferent about them being burnt to a crisp, that's a level of dog-eat-dog that would make an executive of Walmart blush. So all in all, it's just a very strange, incoherent, and inconsistent ideology. And it's really tough to make anything sensible out of any of it. But that is all for now. Like and subscribe, and take it easy.